Well, as we brought you yesterday, it appears the siege at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, has ended. Officials say the tents, from who they're calling protesters, I consider them terrorists, have been dismantled, and Iraqi security forces have secured perimeters. Were going on for the last couple of days after the initial siege, but no reports of deaths or any casualties. Iran condemned the Trump administration. That's predictable. Iran condemns a lot of people when they're one of the worst actors in the world. That's where I want to bring in our next guest, Jessie Jane Duff. She's a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Jason Miller still here on set with me as well. Jessie Jane, great to see you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, John. Happy New Year, John.
This really, it was important to have you, Jessie. You spent 20 years with the U.S. Marine Corps. You're a gunnery sergeant. These were you always say, my Marines. These were your Marines on the ground, in the line of fire. Not one casualty due to the decisive action of the president.
It's so awesome to hear about this because we are America's 911. We are able to have a rapid response. We can be anywhere in the world in less than 48 hours. And the Marines have again proven that they are capable and ready. And we've always known that Baghdad has been a sense of a hot spot for us because the Iranians have infiltrated the Iraqi government. We know that their presence with the their Shia presence, along with this Iranian-backed Hezbollah, is quite curious because Iranian-backed Hezbollah is exactly what had killed Marines. Over 200 Marines in the barracks in 1983. Right. They were never held accountable for that. Iran still has a lot of blood on their hands of Americans throughout the world, and especially those Marines in 1983. I'm just hoping we put a can of whoop-you-know-what on them.
Jessie, this is Jason. I have a question for you. So obviously we know Iran is up to absolutely no good here, and they're trying to cause problems. They have their own domestic political situation at home with the Ayatollah and the big divide he has with the younger residents of his country. Where are those weapons, though, coming from that Iran is then arming Hezbollah? Are there other countries that are involved here that are possibly in play?
Oh, of course. You have Iran in Syria. You have Iran throughout the Middle East. It's a heavy influencer. And that's why the strikes just a few days prior were upon those sites that are Iranian-backed in Syria and in Iraq. We know that they're based there. We know that they're strategically placed. And Iran has put a lot of money into their proxies. You know, make no mistake, Iran is going to act as if they had nothing to do with this, as they always do. But they put their proxies up to this type of terror and murder whenever they can take advantage of it, because what essentially is happening is the Trump administration has refused to play ball. They have said flat out, we are not going to be a part of a nuclear deal that enables you to have nuclear weapons down into the future. I'm shocked when I hear the Democratic opponents still saying, this is our fault. I heard them today on Fox News. This is because we withdrew from the Iranian nuclear deal. Really? So it's our fault that our own contractor was killed, and they're now going to try to put a death sentence upon our 5,000 troops in Iraq. Iranians clearly stated they want to murder our military. So I find Democratic strategists that are making these loose statements to protect the Obama administration are being irresponsible and insulting. Essentially, it's like saying, if you let the wife beat her out of jail, then it'll keep him from being hostile in the prison. Really, this is what Iran wants. They want to try to provoke us. They want to engage with us. And I would suggest that our offensive measures against the Syrians, the Iranian-backed Hezbollahs in Syria and in Iraq, those 5 strikes that our Air Force conducted, were very proactive, and we're saying we will not allow you to kill us, and we will not allow you to make us your targets.
Jessie, let me ask you this. You know, a good portion of the president's base, one of the things that had them gravitate toward the president was his draw-down strategy, his non-interventionism strategy, unless it was absolutely necessary. Now we have about 5,000 additional troops going back to Iraq. So how does the president politically thread this needle?
Well, I think we've already had the 5,000 troops based in Iraq. They've been there. Now we're sending in paratroopers and ensuring that our embassy will not be under attack. I think he really recognizes that we've invested a lot into Iraq, and it really, really is a difficult situation. First of all, under his administration, who's to say how this whole entire Iraq situation would have turned out that started, 20 years ago? We can't predict what should have been because it's already happened. Now the president is in a position where he has to try to justify and rectify it the best he can. Iraq, many of us have friends that have fought and died in Iraq. trying to defend and get rid of the type of thing that we are seeing now resurface, except this time it's backed by the Iranians. Before it was backed by Sunni, now it's backed by Shia. And when you have this, you also have the forbidden fruit of ISIS coming back in that tempts those, such as the Sunni, who want to fight the Shia. You're going to be in a constant turmoil in this region. It's forever a debacle. However, the president understands that if we just cut bait at this point, we now are abandoning our airfields, and we are now abandoning a very valuable resource that could retaliate against Iran should it be needed.
Jessie, Democrats are almost silent on the attacks on our embassy. Have you heard any of them say anything insightful here, or are they completely in the mumble tank?
Well, the Democratic strategists, I would say. I haven't heard any of the politicians come out. But when we talk about the Democratic strategists who are trying to blame the United States for withdrawing from the Iranian nuclear deal, are also suggesting that this is Trump's Benghazi. How many of us saw, Morning Joy?
Joy Reid,
What's her last name? I can't even remember.
Joy Reid.
Joy Reid, thank you. Coming out, trying to suggest that this was Trump's Benghazi, sounded to me like she was getting a little joy out of this. Pardon her first name, but here she is almost gleefully suggesting that this is something that's a failure on Trump's part, not recognizing that Marines and American personnel were put at risk. And I dare to say, Joy, if you had somebody serving on active duty or who was serving over there as a embassy personnel, you would not be quite so giddy about this. There was an ambassador that was killed in Benghazi, along with 4 or 5 Americans that were trying to defend that embassy. Tyrone Woods comes to mind right off the top of my head because I know his wife personally. It really bothers me when they get almost a, yay, you have your problem now, at the expense of American lives. Instead, they should be fighting for the freedom of the United States, regardless of who's in that office. I cried the day that Ambassador Stevens was killed. It didn't matter to me that the president was President Obama. Anybody who's serving this country overseas should be in the hearts and minds of all Americans. And our prayers should be that they are not under harm's way, because regardless of who your president is, their lives matter too.
Jessie, look, I agree with you. Jason's right. You're right. I mean, the way the left handled this, we were talking about this a little earlier in the show, was absolutely, I thought it was just disgraceful. Jessie Jane Duff, always great to see you, my friend. Thanks.
Thank you.